Let's go now, though, to Benedict Spence, because he's going to talk to us about the big political stories of the morning. Benedict, very good morning to you.
Good morning, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks very much for talking to us. I mean, I know we'll get to it because it's my sort of favourite story of the morning, is this government idea that they're going to hand out the right for local councils to make 20-mile-an-hour zones a big thing all over the country. But let's kick off with the finances, I suppose, for what we should say, because a slightly worrying story on the front page of the Financial Times saying that TUC plans in the autumn sort of period of conferences, and they'll have their own conference, they're going to demand more money from Labour, as if we didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could have predicted this the second that Louise Hay sort of stood in front of the camera and said, "I've got a great deal from from the rail unions,
yes.
And the grown-ups are back in charge and all of that sort of thing." And within a couple of hours, ASLEF had said, "We're going on strike again." And, you know, we've had this with the Border Force and obviously the junior doctors. The junior doctors actually were sort of rather magnanimous at the start. They said, right, well, we've got a little bit of a pay rise, we'll take that for the time being, and then we'll come back later. Whereas ASLEF wasted no time at all. And now, as you say, the TUC have decided that they're going to do the same thing. The unions have seen, basically, that this is a weak government, that it's an inexperienced government, and they've decided to sort of turn the screw. And on the one hand, you kind of got to say, well, everybody's entitled to try and get a pay rise if they want. You know, public sector workers haven't had one in a while. You know, they're entitled to do that. On the other hand, you've kind of got to say, what does this say actually about how they consider Labour's mission to try and get the whole country back working again, that they're taking it upon themselves to get such massive pay rises and changes to their terms and conditions straight off the bat, whilst the rest of us are all going to be getting, oh, that's right, tax rises to pay for this. Yeah, yes. It's going to go down very well, isn't it?
Well, exactly right. It's not going to end... I mean, it hasn't started well, and it's not going to end well, and the bit in the middle is going to be particularly painful. Apart from that, it's going to be great. But even Dan Hodges is writing in the Mail this morning that, once again, militant unions think that they rule Britain. They don't respect or need Keir Starmer anymore because Angela Rayner is in their corner. And the FT piece talks about Matt Rack, head of the Fire Brigades Union, who's basically told the Financial Times that he wants delegates at next month's annual meeting of the TUC to back a demand for above-inflation pay rises, because their sort of mantra now is that, you know, for so long we haven't had a pay rise that we now need above-inflation pay rises, like, you know, 14% for the ASLEF train drivers, like 22% for the junior doctors. I mean, they're going to bankrupt the country, aren't they?
Well, it's not going to be great, seeing as inflation is set to come back in quite a big way in the second half of the year. If you've got millions of people demanding above-inflation pay rises when inflation is already a problem, I wonder what that might lead to. I can't possibly imagine. There's this sort of process. You know, things. Anyway, I'm sure it'll all be fine. It'll work out. It's not going to add to inflation, is it? That's not a thing.
No, of course not.
It's as you say, it's not a great sign. I mean, it's also not a great sign, frankly, given that so many Labour MPs have received so many donations from unions. And on the one hand, you've kind of got to say, well, it is the Labour Party. They are sort of established on the idea of the Labour movement, and these are sort of, you know, their core voters. But you would hope that a government would have the gumption, would have the sort of the willpower to say, well, thank you very much for your donation, but the first thing we do is not going to be to hand you a bung straight off the bat.
Right, but unfortunately that's exactly what they have done. And we already saw the figures yesterday for borrowing in July are up 1.8 billion on 2023 already, and that's even before the pay rises have sort of properly kicked in. So there's borrowing going up and up and up and up. There's more pay rises being offered, and there's only one way for them to then go, and that is to tax people. And it's on the front page of Telegraph today. They're talking about maybe taxing employers more and making them pay more of a national insurance contribution for each of the people that they employ, which is hardly going to be great for employment, is it?
Well, it's not. And I mean, yeah, we already have anemic growth in this country as it is. And you're kind of thinking, well, what are the things actually that people would really like? And that is for their taxes to come down and for their services to work. Ultimately, for that, you need growth and you need to create wealth. And the Tory government, the last Tory government, you have to say, was equally bad at this. You know, to its great shame. And that is, of course, why it was kicked out of office quite so unceremonially by the voters. But for Labour to sort of stand on the basis of, well, here comes sort of grown-up managerial competence again, and then to go, and we're going to make everything just ever so slightly worse than it was before. Inflation will be slightly worse, immigration will be slightly worse, and growth will be ever so slightly worse, and your taxes will be slightly higher. People aren't going to look at that and go, oh, phenomenal, this is exactly what I was holding out for. And just look at that, all the services are working again, as if by magic.
But I was watching Keir Starmer giving a press conference just the other day when he was talking about prisons, and this is also going to be their mantra, that everything that they inherited was in such a terrible state that they've simply had to try and stitch it all together, and it will take them a long time before they can get everything back to normal in the way that it should be. And he was talking specifically about the size of the prison population and the fact that there was no room anywhere in it to put anybody who was committing any kind of crime. And of course what we've now seen is that actually they've made plenty of room for people. They've now locked up, I think, in excess of 400 people from the riots, and therefore they've let out something like 200 to 300 people who are actually quite serious criminals.
Well, this was a delicate balancing act, wasn't it? Because they came out in the first week and said, well, this country puts too many people in prisons anyway. We're addicted to punishment. And then, of course, a riot breaks out, and then another one breaks out. Well, you can't really be seen to be letting those people just roam the streets free. But you're right to say that there are going to be people who are going to be released as part of this. And this was going to be the case without the riots, because they'd already said that they were going to be looking to release people early in order to free up space. That means that there are going to be people out who do not deserve to be, who are potentially dangerous, and who will reoffend. And, you know, again, I don't think that their approach was the right one at all. I suspect most people don't. That's probably why Keir Starmer's personal approval ratings aren't so great, because people are thinking, hang on, this is a bit hairy. But on the other hand, we do have to say that there aren't enough prison spaces in this country, and prisons are not things that you can just build very quickly in a matter of weeks. And on top of that, to do it, to build the prison capacity that you do need to reform the planning system in this country, and that's going to take a little bit of time. But I would have liked to have seen them make a bit more of a sort of a visual, vocal thing of actually going down that route of saying this is how we're going to do it, because we've heard a little bit about planning reform on house building, in which Angela Rayner has gone, London doesn't need that many houses anyway, and everybody's sort of raised an eyebrow and gone, all right, it doesn't sound likely. But we've not actually heard very much about how many new prisons are going to be built, where they're going to be built. I would have thought law and order would be front and centre of their agenda, but it's not.
Well, it should be, because it kind of has been for the last 3 weeks or so. And as I say, they're still locking people up. They're still pushing people through the justice system incredibly quickly when you consider what else is going on. And in fact, we're compiling, even as we speak, a list of the people who have not been sent to prison for committing some pretty heinous and ghastly crimes over the last month or so, because they weren't involved in the riots, so they were just criminals of another type. But the problem is, as well, I don't remember a prison being built, I don't know, in the last 20 years, do you? I mean, I heard an awful lot about it under the Tories, but I don't think they've actually ever built a prison new in this country within the last 2 decades.
I can't either, and I think, it's all the worse given that the previous government, well, the coalition government, closed prisons on the basis that they thought that they were too old. I think Lancaster prison was closed because it was in an old castle, and they thought, well, it's not a good look to have a prison in a castle. And you sat there thinking, well, if the cells work, if the doors work, what's the problem?
I think it's perfect to put them in a castle, isn't it? A perfect place to lock them up.
To close prisons because they're too old and then not build new ones seems very, very silly. But, we have to go back and think, what is it that actually prompted these riots in the first place? And I know lots of people will talk about the far right and racism and all that, and that's fine. But actually what prompted this was an act of criminality. And the complaints by a lot of people are that criminality is allowed to go unchecked in many parts of this country. Well, why is that? Because the police don't respond to things, and because even if they do respond to things, people aren't sent to prison. And even if they're convicted, they're given very light prison sentences. All the perception is that they're given very light sentences because, again, even before this, people were being let out early on their sentences. So, to sort of suggest that we need to be putting these rioters in prison, we do. You can't have civil disobedience like we've seen, but you have to look at the root cause of it. And part of that is because this country actually hasn't been tough on crime.
And you have to be responsible about it as well. And you have to, while he was saying it, I was just kind of smirking when Keir Starmer was talking about making the streets safe for people in Britain and locking these rioters up. Well, one of the reasons that they're rioting is because the streets of Britain aren't safe, and they're, people rampaging around. Every single day you see somebody fighting with a machete on social media that's filming somewhere. You see people getting beaten up in the street in broad daylight. You see people getting robbed. Yesterday we've got an Amazon a van driver who was killed because some thug decided he wanted to steal his van. I mean, there's crime absolutely everywhere you look.
Everyone I know, certainly in London, has experience of crime being committed either against them or seeing it happening, and of the police doing nothing, or of people not calling the police because they say the police will do nothing. And, last week I was speaking to somebody who said their handbag was stolen whilst they were sat at a restaurant, quite a nice restaurant, and the maitre d' said, yes, this happens every night. Somebody just comes in and they sit, and you just think, every night at a well-known West End restaurant, and somebody else I knew had their bike stolen. Somebody else, our friend, had their phone snatched out of their hand as they were walking down Oxford Street. And you think this it can't be that so many people in your personal life, and this is of course just London, other cities and even the countryside as well. The countryside, actually, the reporting rate and the solving rate of crime is even worse in the countryside, because their resources are even worse, but it doesn't get highlighted. You can't have this system sort of carrying on perpetually.
No, absolutely not. I just want to finish up with a little clip for you from the US of A, because that was last night, of course, that Tim Walz made his sort of inaugural speech to the Democratic National Convention. But Mr. Clinton, Bill Clinton, remember him? He was there as well. Have a look at this.
2 days ago, I turned 78, the oldest man in my family of 4 generations. And the only personal vanity I want to assert is I'm still younger than Donald Trump.
It's funny how age is now a thing for the Democrats. It never used to be. They used to think it doesn't matter how old people are.
It's good to see that they've given Bill the night off from being Joe Biden's marionette. It's the guy pulling the strings, or with the puppet on the hand, however you want to visually picture that in your mind's eye, whichever's sort of less traumatizing for you. But I mean, it is interesting actually how they kept on going for so long. Oh, Joe Biden's age isn't a problem; he's fighting fit.
Yes.
Everything's fine, until the entire world had to endure the debate with Donald Trump. At which point, yeah, you're right. Suddenly, Democrats start going, oh, maybe we shouldn't be sort of parachuting geriatrics into the White House. Maybe this isn't the best idea. But it is a sign, ultimately, of how politics, not just in the US, in the West in general, has changed. That both candidates, until very recently, were older than Bill Clinton. And that everybody thought, oh, this is perfectly fine. I mean, there was even a joke going around at one point when it looked like Biden would step around. People said, well, Jimmy Carter only served 1 term. Maybe we could get him in, seeing as, age doesn't seem to be a barrier to the White House anymore.
I know. Absolutely extraordinary. Jane in Chester says, has Benedict had a late night? He's not looking as pristine as he normally looks. I think that's a bit harsh, but thank you very much indeed for joining us at this very early part of the morning. I mean, I'm looking out. It's still dark, so, I forgive you.
But Benedict can't always be looking as put together as he is for Talk's audience.
Exactly.
Sadly, he's also doing this on a phone because his laptop isn't working.
Yeah, there we are.
He's had better mornings, but thank you for your concern.
No, not at all. Great to see you. Benedict Spence there talking about all the big stories this morning on the political front.